Hello people of the internet, welcome back to the channel. On this channel I talk about true crime cases, old, new, unsolved, solved, you name it, I talk about it. And if that sounds like content you would enjoy, or if you are brand new or haven't taken the 2 seconds that it takes to click on the subscribe button, please take a moment, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads or cases that I cover. For today's video, I will be covering a solved case. This is case number 29. As always, I will be throwing up my disclaimer now if you are watching this episode on YouTube. I'm stating the obvious, but every single case I cover is very sad. This is one that is not only sad, but completely unnecessary. This young man who had so much potential, so much aspiration for his future, to only be murdered so senselessly is beyond frustrating. But let's go ahead and talk about this case, the murder of Christian Aguilar. Let's start by talking about who Christian was. Christian Aguilar was born on November 16, 1993 in Doral, Florida, to parents Carlos and Claudia. He was the oldest of 2 boys in the family. He had a baby brother named Alex, who was a little over 2 years younger than him. His parents immigrated from Colombia in the early 1990s, just before Christian was born. Carlos and Claudia wanted their sons to live and have a better life than they had growing up. They came to Florida so Christian and Alex could go to universities to get a great education so they could have every opportunity that the United States had to offer them. Christian is described by his family and friends as just a really amazing person. He was a bit of a comedic. He was always cracking jokes, always smiling his infectious smile. He was extremely smart, very focused on achieving good grades. He was frequently reading and studying all the time. Christian was also described to be emotionally mature for someone who was so young. He really had it together and he deeply cared about everyone around him. He always wanted to make his friends happy and smile, especially if they were feeling down or he knew that they were having a bad day. With his caring nature, he was able to make friends very easily. Throughout high school, he had a very tight-knit group of friends who were always hanging out together. He was adventurous, enjoyed playing sports such as soccer and football, and he was a decent athlete as well. By the time he was almost finished with high school, Christian already had his future plans set. He had always been very interested in science, technology, and engineering, which led him to decide to pursue a career as a biomedical engineer. He wanted to help create prosthetic machinery for people who had lost their limbs so they could have an easier life despite their disabilities, which I think really speaks volumes to the type of person Christian truly was. He began to apply to universities, and he had his heart set on the University of Florida. UF is probably the #1 university here in Florida. Even I, years ago, after finishing high school, had briefly considered applying to UF, but I didn't have the same educational drive as Christian Aguilar. Not even close, if I'm being completely honest. Christian was quickly accepted into the University of Florida, and he was the first member of his family to be going to college. It was an exciting time for him, but also nerve-wracking at the same time. He was leaving his family's home for the first time. UF was located about 5 hours away from his family's home in Miami, Florida. It was, of course, brand new territory for Christian and his family, but Christian was looking forward to his future. He had everything going for him. The summer of 2012, before he was to start his first semester at university as a freshman, he began dating his longtime friend since the beginning of high school. Her name is Erica Freeman. Erica is described as a bright, nice, polite, and very soft-spoken person. Christian and Erica's relationship started out as platonic friends, and after recently ending her previous relationship, Erica and Christian began to explore their romantic feelings towards each other. Before they sparked a relationship, both Christian and Erica had been accepted into schools located in Gainesville, Florida. Christian was going to UF, and Erica was to start attending classes at the Santa Fe Community College. Between UF and Santa Fe, it's about a 12-minute drive. The campuses aren't very far apart at all. In June of 2012, Christian and Erica moved from Miami to Gainesville. It was very nice that they at least had each other in this new place. Like I said, they went to the same high school together. They were in the same friend group. They had been really good friends for years, and now that they were both in Gainesville, they began spending a lot of time together. At first, it was still a friendship, but as they spent more time together, feelings naturally developed on both sides, and they officially became boyfriend and girlfriend during that summer. At this point, Christian's life seemed as close to perfect as it could get. He had just started his classes at his dream school. He had a beautiful girlfriend that he adored. He knew exactly what career he wanted to pursue, which, let's be honest, not a lot of 18-year-olds know what career they want to go for. I know at 18 years old, I didn't have anything figured out. Summer of 2012 was like a dream for Christian, but this beautiful dream unfortunately turns into a complete nightmare. On the morning of September 21st, 2012, Erica calls Christian's mother, Claudia, to ask her if she had heard from Christian since the previous day. Claudia says that she hadn't heard from him, and she immediately asked Erica what was going on. Erica tells her that she had been trying to contact Christian for hours the previous night and throughout the entire morning. He's not answering his phone, and no one had seen him for several hours. This was an immediate red flag. Christian always answered his phone for his friends and family. All of them knew this. So Claudia hangs up the phone call with Erica. She tries calling Christian herself with no answer, and then she calls her husband Carlos and tells him the situation. She tells him Christian isn't answering the phone and that no one knows where he is. Without hesitation, Carlos starts calling Christian, and when he gets his voicemail, this confirms his concerns, and Christian's entire family, Carlos, Claudia, and Alex, who they had picked up from his high school, all made the long drive to Gainesville to search for Christian. Meanwhile, Erica is very upset. She's extremely worried about Christian. On the night before, on September 20th, Erica called and texted Christian several times. It was a normal routine for them to talk every single night, but now, all of a sudden, Christian isn't answering. Erica tried to think of reasonable explanations as to why he wasn't answering her, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, and when the silence from Christian's end continued the following morning, she knew that something had to be wrong. After contacting Christian's parents, she calls up another close friend of both hers and Christian's, a guy named Pedro Bravo. And if you think I will be referring to him as PB from this point on, then you would be correct. So Erica calls and tells him that she is going to report Christian Aguilar as a missing person to the University of Florida Police Department, and PB offers to go with her to make this report. They both get to the station and report Christian as missing. Following this report, thankfully, and this is such a breath of fresh air, because honestly, you don't see or hear this a lot when a college student is reported missing, but the police department took action immediately. They started with the basics, they checked his dorm room, and they were also able to get Christian's class schedule and physically checked in the classes that Christian was supposed to be attending that morning. I can't tell you how many cases I read about where the police don't take a missing persons report seriously, especially when it comes to a college student. The excuses you frequently hear are that this person is over 18, they probably spent the night at a friend's, sleeping off a probable hangover somewhere. It just brings back some of my faith in humanity that for this case, they didn't say some bullshit like that. They got off of their asses like they are supposed to and made the effort to find him immediately after he was reported missing. While the police department were beginning to search for Christian, Erica and PB remained at the station and were both interviewed by the police. Investigators wanted to know about Christian, and they were trying to piece together Christian's last known whereabouts. They start to interview PB, and he starts to tell the police that he and Christian hung out for a few hours the day before on September 20th. So investigators are like, okay, great. We at least know that he had been seen yesterday by his friend. So they ask PB to describe the timeline of events on September 20th. During this initial interview, PB says that Christian received a flu shot in the early afternoon. He messaged Christian after he got a shot and asked him if he wanted to get something to eat with him. Christian agrees, and they get into PB's car and grab lunch at a Zaxby's. After eating their food, Christian asks PB if they can stop at a Best Buy so he can see if he can purchase the new Kanye West CD. They walk around the Best Buy for a while, and eventually they find the CD and purchase it, and then they leave the store. They start driving back to the university's campus, and during this drive, PB says that him and Christian had started a conversation, which eventually turned into an argument. According to PB, Christian at some point during this argument demanded PB to stop his car so he can get out. PB says he stopped the car, Christian got out, and then he drove away, leaving Christian on the side of the road. PB then said he returned back to his apartment, took some sleeping pills, and went straight to sleep for the rest of the night. The interview presses PB a little bit on the story, asking him if he was sure that this was everything that had happened on the day of September 20th. That's when PB starts to change his story. And be prepared, because his story will change several times. PB then starts to tell the investigator that before Christian and him had this argument and Christian had been let out of the car, they did pick up a hitchhiker a few streets before to give him a ride. PB said he knew that this wasn't the smartest idea, picking up this stranger, but said that he and Christian figured that if this man did try to do anything, then he and Christian could easily overpower him together, so they weren't really worried about anything nefarious happening when they picked up the hitchhiker. He says during the drive with this hitchhiker that apparently had a cowboy's hat on, they drove with him for about 10 minutes. He talked to both Christian and PB and told them what he was doing in the Gainesville area. And the entire time this hitchhiker was talking, he was playing with a roll of duct tape that PB had in his back seat. He then says after about 10 minutes of driving cowboy hat hitchhiker around, he asked PB to pull over the car and let him out near some sort of storage facility. PB says he dropped this man off at the location, and he and Christian made a U-turn out of the storage facility and continued driving back towards the university. PB also made sure to make it clear to the investigator that he was talking to that cowboy hat hitchhiker took the roll of duct tape with him when he got out of the car. And remember that, because the duct tape will come back later in the story. Then a few minutes later, Christian and PB had their argument, and the story of Christian getting out of the car and PB leaving him on the side of the road occurred. During this first interview, towards the end, PB made some concerning statements regarding his mental health, and at one point he did confirm that he was suicidal, and due to some of the suspicious things he was stating about Christian's case, the investigators used the Baker's Act and involuntarily held PB for an inpatient mental assessment for 72 hours. Which was a great move, not only to keep an eye on PB, but it gave the police department more time to do their investigation of PB without fear of him getting in the way or doing something harmful to himself. After PB told this version of events, investigators quickly went around collecting security footage from all of the locations that PB claimed him and Christian had visited that day. At first, his story seemed to match up. They found footage of them leaving the university. They found footage of them driving to the Zaxby's, and then they found footage of them inside the Best Buy and leaving the parking lots together. But they could not find any footage of the cowboy hat hitchhiker that PB and Christian had allegedly picked up that day. The last footage CCTV had captured of Christian Aguilar was PB's car with Christian presumably inside, leaving a Walmart parking lot at approximately 7 p.m. Following this interview, the University of Florida Police Department had developed enough concern about Christian and turned his case over to the Gainesville Police Department. Now an investigator from the Gainesville Police Department interviews PB, and he gives the same story of the events about the hitchhiker, and this investigator starts to ask about his relationship with Christian and Erica. PB tells him that he and Christian had been really good friends all throughout high school at the Doral Charter Academy. He also relays to this investigator that him and Erica Freeman had dated for about 2 years, from sophomore year all the way through senior year. Yep, that's right. Erica and PB were ex-boyfriend and girlfriend, and Erica had broken up with him right before they graduated high school. I mentioned towards the beginning that Erica had recently ended her previous relationship before starting her relationship with Christian. The investigator was very intrigued by this dynamic and asked PB how he felt about Erica and Christian dating. And he said at first it was a little rough, but he and Christian are friends, and he was overall glad that it was him that Erica chose instead of someone else he didn't know. He also said he knew that Christian was a very good guy and he would take care of her. He also claimed that Christian had been the one to tell him about his relationship with Erica. But when the investigator spoke to Erica, she told the investigator that Christian and her kept their relationship a secret, specifically from PB. Meanwhile, as PB and Erica continued their interviews, Christian's family arrived in Gainesville and started searching for Christian. UF had also released to the entire student body that Christian was missing. The Aguilar family and volunteers started searching through trails that were near where PB supposedly had let him out of the car. PB had told Christian's family the same story, and at first, it sort of gave them a little peace of mind. They thought, okay, well, maybe Christian started walking, he made a wrong turn, and he was just lost somewhere. He had only been in Gainesville for a couple of months. He didn't know the area very well yet. In the beginning, they were very hopeful that they were going to locate Christian quickly. Searches started out small, but it quickly turned into a frenzy. Carlos, Claudia, and Alex were at the front line of every single search. Carlos told everyone that he was not going to leave Gainesville until his son was found. He didn't care how long it was going to take. He didn't care how many miles of land they had to search. They were going to find him. It truly breaks my heart. Christian's family were, as you can see, incredibly close. They are a beautiful and wonderful family. Watching interviews of them back when this was happening makes me cry. They begged the community for anyone in the area to come out and help look for Christian. And they did. So many people came outside and walked beside the family to search for Christian. As you all may already know, I live in Florida, and let me tell you that September in Florida is hot as hell. It's miserable outside. Anyone living or visiting here will tell you that. Looking back and watching videos and seeing pictures of Christian's search does also warm my heart as well, because so many people came together as a community for this case. I just wish the outcome had been a happy ending. Back at the station, the investigator who was interviewing PB was beginning to have a lot of suspicions about him and his story. His BS detector went off when PB told him that he was happy about Christian and Erica's relationship. He just didn't believe him when he said that, and I don't blame him. I would have thought that it was extremely weird too. What friend who has been dating someone for years is just perfectly happy when they find out their ex is dating one of their best friends? Let's be honest here. That doesn't happen very often. Erica told investigators that she had started seeing problems with her and PB's relationship a few months before she officially broke things off with him. When she did break up with him, she says that PB was very emotional about the situation. He broke down in tears, cried, and begged her not to break things off with him. But Erica was ready to move on at that point. She felt bad about how hard he was taking their breakup, and she knew she was moving to Gainesville and thought that this separation was going to make the breakup a little easier for him. The Gainesville Police Department then brought in other members of their high school friend group and also asked them about the relationship between Erica and PB. Most, if not all, of the kids that they interviewed described PB as being very much in love with Erica, and said that after the breakup he was very depressed and was not taking the breakup well at all. PB had a full ride scholarship to the University of Miami. His original plan was to go to this university, but in an attempt to get Erica back, he decided to throw away this full ride scholarship and enroll into the same college as Erica at the Santa Fe Community College. PB could not accept the fact that Erica and him were over. He was obsessed enough to follow her from Miami to Gainesville. The more the investigators were listening to these weird things about PB, the more concerned they felt about Christian. Erica was very upfront and told the investigator that Christian and her had kept their relationship quiet for the simple fact that they didn't want PB to know and they didn't want to hurt him. They really had just started their relationship. They didn't want to upset him because Erica and PB had just broken up a couple of months before. It was quickly discovered that PB lied about Christian being the one to tell him about his and Erica's relationship. PB had actually found out about the relationship through one of their mutual friends that did know about Christian and Erica's relationship. After finding out about their relationship, PB reached out to Erica and confronted her about her relationship with Christian, and Erica denied the relationship altogether during this confrontation. She claimed that her and Christian were still just friends. Erica would later explain that the reason why she lied to PB was because she didn't want to send him over the edge. PB had a history of depression. He also would tell Erica and some people within the friend group that he was suicidal. These claims of being suicidal only increased when Erica broke up with him. PB moving to Gainesville was shocking for Erica and Christian. They had no idea that he had thrown away his full ride scholarship until Erica saw him at the Santa Fe campus. Erica and Christian, they really didn't want him to be in the same area as him. They were happy exploring their new relationship, and with PB now in the same campus as Erica, this had complicated things. PB wanted to speak to Christian and confront him about his relationship with Erica. This had been the purpose of them hanging out the majority of the day on September 20th. A couple of days searching for Christian went by, and what started out as a couple of volunteers became hundreds. A lot of students from the Gainesville universities joined in the search. They had horsebacks, scent dogs, helicopters flying overhead. Law enforcement from all over the state were involved with the search. It was massive. Gainesville is filled with swampy woods. A lot of searches that were conducted were combing these areas. Tips were flying in with potential sightings, but none of these tips ever led to Christian. I wish that every single missing person received this type of support. So many more people would be found if they all received this type of an extensive search. So with several red flags flaring up, the investigators asked PB if they can search his car. He agreed, and what they found in his vehicle was damning, to say the least. In the back of his car, a receipt from McDonald's was found, and this receipt was dated after midnight of September 21st, which was the time that PB had told investigators that he was fast asleep in his apartment after taking the sleeping pills. PB claimed that he had gotten to his apartment at around 7:30 p.m. and didn't leave again until the following morning to accompany Erica to the police station to report Christian missing. So his shitty alibi, to say the least, is now obliterated. The time that he had gotten his Big Mac was past midnight, so now everyone is asking, what was PB doing for those over 5 hours that he's unaccounted for? Here's a clip of the investigator confronting PB about the receipt.
And why didn't you tell me that the first time?
I forgot. Honestly, I'm sorry, but I forgot.
Yeah.
I might have been drowsy from the pills and I don't remember.
He forgot. How convenient. So add the midnight run to McDonald's as another part of his story that changed. Then, as the investigators are questioning him, this time on September 23rd, 2012, his story changes again. Now he claims that during the argument that he and Christian had, Christian made a nasty remark towards PB, and in retaliation to this comment, PB punches Christian in the face, pulls over the car, and tells Christian to get out of his car. Christian gets out, and PB leaves him on the side of the road with a bloody nose. Then minutes later, the story changes yet again. In this scenario, when PB pulls over his car, he gets out of his car, pulls Christian out of the passenger seat, and a full-on fight ensues, ending with PB knocking Christian unconscious on the side of the road as he drives away. I think it was during this interview when investigators started to not believe a word PB had to say after his story had changed several times. The realization for the department began to set in, and not only do they think that PB is involved with what happened to Christian, but now they believe that Christian isn't going to come back from this situation alive. They told Christian's family about what PB was telling them, and they were pretty upfront with the situation. They didn't want to destroy every ounce of hope that the family still had, but they told his family that since it's been over 3 days, the likelihood of finding Christian alive was very small. Investigators were able to get a search warrant for PB's apartment, and even more incriminating evidence was found. They found PB's journal, which had pages filled with his obsession with Erica. PB enjoyed journaling and art. There are cartoon drawings all over this notebook, and multiple pages he wrote about his thoughts of Erica. He would write things like how he was going to get her back, and also wrote about how heartbroken he was without her. In other pages, he wrote about how he wanted Christian to disappear. During one of his first interviews, PB told the investigator he had been happy for Erica and Christian's new relationship. But this journal they found completely said the opposite. There's only limited photos of this journal available, and most of them are, of course, really hard to read. It would be really interesting to be able to read this entire journal. If given the chance, I would love to get my hands on this journal. Finding something like this definitely gives you an idea of what was going through his mind, and clearly he wasn't having good thoughts. In fact, I would say his thoughts were sickening. He's obsessed with Erica. He's threatening to hurt himself. He keeps writing that he will do anything to get Erica back. It's looking bad for PB, and it's going to get worse and worse as I go on. In the closet of PB's bedroom, they found this suitcase, and in this suitcase was a smaller suitcase. In the smaller suitcase, they found Christian's backpack. Within his backpack, Christian's wallet with his IDs, driver's license, and credit cards were still inside. And if that wasn't enough, they also found a receipt from Lowe's that was dated on September 19th, 2012. So 1 day before Christian would go missing. And on this receipt, PB purchased a shovel, insecticide, and a bottle of Gatorade. They looked through his computer searches and found multiple concerning searches, such as how to get away with murder and how to kill somebody with sleeping pills. Investigators also obtained PB's cell phone records, and they found pretty interesting things from this as well. On the night Christian disappeared, it was confirmed that PB had turned on airplane mode for hours that night. Due to being on airplane mode, PB's location was not able to be tracked between the hours of 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. on the night of September 20th. Not only that, but the app log for his phone confirmed that PB had used the flashlight app for a total of 43 minutes during the late hours of the night. Investigators further found more footage of PB at a local car wash at around 1 a.m., and the footage shows him spraying off the tires of his car. The puzzle pieces are starting to come together, and it's a horrifying picture. All of the evidence is concluding that PB had murdered Christian, and he had buried his body somewhere. After finding Christian's backpack and the receipt from Lowe's, the Gainesville Police Department had found enough evidence, and they arrested PB for depriving a victim of medical care, a third-degree felony, on September 24, 2012. PB at this point had admitted that he had allegedly beat Christian until he was unconscious and then drove away. This is what prompted that charge. But this charge was just to obviously keep him detained. They didn't want PB to be released in fear that he would either run away or take his own life. The search for Christian never slowed down. If anything, the momentum only ever increased for his search. Hundreds of volunteers were still looking for him around this time. Around this time, mostly everyone was under the assumption that they were now looking for a body. Once PB was arrested for the third-degree felony charge, they searched his car again. The first time they had done this, they weren't looking at PB as a potential murderer, so they decided to dot their I's, cross their T's, and perform a thorough search of his vehicle. This time, they found the same Gatorade bottle he had purchased from Lowe's, and when they tested the liquids in this bottle, it was determined that it was a mixture of Gatorade and diphenhydramine, which is a type of sleeping pill. During this full forensic sweep of PB's vehicle, pieces of duct tape were also found, and on the carpet of the truck, small traces of blood and fluid were found. This blood and fluid were tested, and it was confirmed to match Christian's DNA. The fluid was confirmed to be fluid from his lungs. Once these results came back, everyone's heart sank. It was evidence that Christian could no longer be alive. So on September 28, 2012, PB was officially charged with the first-degree murder of Christian Aguilar. The search for Christian was no longer a search for a live Christian. It was now a body recovery search. Scent dogs were used a lot during the next couple of weeks. Christian's parents and brother weren't giving up hope. They understood that they were now looking for his body, but they were on a mission to bring him home, and nothing was going to stop them. 3 weeks of nonstop searching went by. His family and volunteers were exhausted, but continued their mission. On October 12, 2012, the search would come to a tragic end. 2 hunters were walking in the woods when they started to smell the scent of decay. At first, they assumed that this awful smell was from a dead snake or alligator, but when they located the source of the smell, they found human skeletal remains in a shallow grave. The location of these remains were located about an hour's drive away west of Gainesville. The clothes on these remains matched what Christian had been wearing the night he had disappeared. He was also found bound with duct tape around his ankles, hands, and mouth before being discarded in this shallow grave. They just knew in their hearts that they had found Christian. The results of the DNA test on the remains were completed very quickly, and these were confirmed to be the remains of Christian Aguilar. His cause of death was confirmed to be strangulation. The entire community grieved for Christian and his family. The worst possible outcome had happened, and they had known that this was more than likely going to be the outcome, but that didn't make it any easier once his body was found. Hundreds of people attended Christian's funeral. People who didn't get the chance to meet or know him had come to pay their respects. Christian's family had laid him to rest, but their battle wasn't over, not by a long shot. Now that Christian had been returned to them, they now wanted justice for him. In addition to the charge for first-degree murder, now that Christian's body had been recovered, PB was additionally charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, poisoning, improper transportation of human remains, giving false information to law enforcement in a missing persons case, tampering with evidence, and providing false reports following the disappearance of Christian. On August 6, 2014, PB's trial began. Carlos, Claudia, and Alex sat in the court during every single minute of this trial. They never missed a moment. The prosecution had pieced together what had really happened on the night of September 20th, 2012. Based on all of the evidence, all of the interviews they had conducted, PB was jealous and outraged that Christian and Erica had developed a romantic relationship. He couldn't handle the fact that Erica no longer wanted anything to do with him, so he devised a plan to take Christian out of the equation in order to, in his mind, win Erica back. He looked up ways on his computer on how to kill someone with sleeping pills, and he then starts to purchase some items to carry out the murder: the shovel, the Gatorade, and sleeping pills. PB then convinces Christian to hang out with him. They go to Zaxby's for lunch, then to Best Buy, and eventually they end up in a Walmart parking lot. Surveillance footage from the Walmart parking lot confirmed that PB's car was parked for approximately 2 hours. During this time, it is assumed that PB gave Christian the bottle of Gatorade laced with the sleeping pills, and he waited for Christian to start to fall into unconsciousness. Once Christian was out of it, PB climbed into the back seat of his car, and he used one of the car seat belt straps to strangle Christian to death. He then drove himself and Christian's body an hour away from Gainesville, duct taped Christian's body, dug a shallow grave, and placed his body in the grave in the dead of night. PB's defense argued that PB did hit Christian that day, but he did not kill him, and that he had only left him on the side of the road on the day of September 20th. So, yeah, horrible defense to say the least. There's so much evidence pointing to PB, and they have the audacity to testify in court that he had only beat Christian up and drove away. Christian's blood and fluid from his lungs were found in that car. The bottle of Gatorade that still had the laced mixture inside of it was in the trunk. Pieces of duct tape that were also found in the car matched the same duct tape that was found to have bound Christian's body. He purchased a damn shovel a day before the murder. Christian's backpack with his wallet were found hidden in PB's closet. He has a journal outlining his obsession with Erica and his inner thoughts about wanting Christian to disappear. Not to mention that he admittedly was the last person to see Christian alive. Come on now. No one can sit there and tell me that this monster didn't kill Christian. Several witnesses testified during the trial, including Erica Freeman, who described her relationship with PB and testified that he had been obsessed with getting her back into a relationship with him. Erica was very emotional as she was testifying during the trial. She had to take multiple breaks while she was on the stand, and my heart can't help but break for her. Even though Erica and Christian hadn't been dating for very long, she clearly has a lot of love for him, and knowing that PB had done this to Christian, it was traumatizing for Erica to be on the stand with him staring at her the entire time as she testified. Erica's testimony was very important. She provided background of the relationship dynamics, she provided timeframes, but the most important testimony of this trial ended up not being Erica Freeman's. It was actually the testimony of a man by the name of Michael Angelo. Michael Angelo, a convicted Crips gang member, was the assigned cellmate of PB while he was waiting on his own trial. The agreement Michael had made with the prosecution was that if he testified truthfully, then they would help him get a lesser sentence when his trial took place. Michael took the stand and claimed that PB had opened up to him and told Michael what exactly had happened to Christian Aguilar. He stated that when PB first arrived in their cell, he was emotional, crying a lot, didn't speak a lot to him at first, but as days went by, PB and Michael started talking, and eventually PB admitted to him that he had murdered Christian. He told him his entire plan to kill Christian. He sung like a damn canary. According to Michael, PB told him that his plan was to kill Christian by lacing his drink with sleeping pills and insecticides. PB then told Michael in great detail how he had killed Christian in the Walmart parking lot. During his testimony, Michael Angelo stated, "I will go ahead and play this clip for you now."
You know, he got out like he had to find something in the back seat, and he told me that, you know, when he was back there, that he, you know, basically put a moving strap around the kid's neck and braced himself against the seat. And, you know, he said that he remembers watching the radio, the clock on the radio, and said it took like 13 minutes for the kid to, you know, I guess die.
The part about PB allegedly watching the clock on the radio as he was strangling Christian gives me goosebumps. It's very specific information, and that's why it seems very truthful. Michael went on to describe how PB told him about researching the area where he would eventually bury Christian's body. He told Michael how he duct taped Christian, then after burying him, he used a hose at the car wash to clean off the dirt on the tires of his car, and then he went to grab something to eat. Michael then told the court that PB had asked Michael if he could get someone to retrieve the shovel that he had used and to dispose of it. PB told Michael where he had put the shovel. Michael told the investigators where they would find the shovel, and guess what? They found the shovel exactly where Michael had told them it would be. It was semi-buried underneath a wooden walkway at PB's apartment complex. Michael then went on to say that PB had developed a plan to get himself off the hook for Christian's murder. According to Michael, PB asked him if he could get some of the members of his gang to murder a couple of students attending the University of Florida. PB wanted them to murder these random students in a similar way that Christian had died, so that the investigators would believe that PB was innocent and the murder of Christian was committed by a serial killer that was targeting UF students. Michael Angelo's entire testimony against PB was overall terrifying. It showed everyone how cold and calculated this person is. He was more than willing to have other people die so he could ensure his own freedom. Of course, the defense brought up Michael Angelo's credibility. They described him as a jailhouse snitch who only testified so his own sentence would be reduced. The credibility of any witness that allegedly hears a confession from their cellmates is always going to be in question. But Michael's testimony fits the entire timeline of the day Christian had been murdered. There is no other way he could have known all of this information, especially the location of that shovel. For me, the fact that they were able to find that shovel obliterates any reasonable doubt for me. Interestingly, PB also took the stand, which if you consume a lot of true crime content, then I'm sure that you're aware that typically the person being prosecuted for heinous crimes such as murder or sexual assault, they usually don't take the stand. Their defense team doesn't want them to, so they don't have a chance of incriminating themselves during cross-examinations. But in this case, PB did testify, and watching it is truly pitiful and pathetic. PB stated that he purchased the Gatorade, the sleeping medication, and the shovel because he was preparing to carry out his own suicide and had originally planned to dig his own tomb. He admitted to still beating up Christian to the point of unconsciousness and driving away, leaving him on the side of the road. And he said after he did this, he drove out into the woods, had his flashlight app on his phone on, found a tree that he thought was good enough to die under, wrote the day's date, 9/20/12, in the dirt to confirm his last day of life. Then he miraculously changed his mind. He couldn't go through with it, and that's when he got back into his car, stopped at the car wash, got that Mickey to the D for a late night dinner, and then went home to his apartment. The prosecution pointed out every inconsistency with his version of events. They continued to point out all of this evidence they had found. No one with any brain cells would believe this story. And the fact that PB seemed so confident and had an answer for everything just made him more unlikable and suspicious. PB's trial lasted a total of 2 weeks, and after only 4 hours of deliberation, the jury found PB guilty of the first-degree murder of Christian Aguilar on August 19th, 2014. All 7 charges, first-degree murder, kidnapping, poisoning, tampering with physical evidence, giving false information, providing false info during an investigation, and improper transfer of human remains, received guilty verdicts. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And if you ask me, despite only being just 20 years old at the time, he deserves every minute the rest of his miserable life behind bars. Before his sentence was read, PB stated, quote, "I know in my heart and I know in my actions that day, and God knows that I did not kill Christian Aguilar," end quote. Upon officially reading his sentence, Judge James Colaw looked directly into PB's cold, soulless eyes and stated, quote, "You took his past, everything he had been. You took his present, everything he was. And you took his future, everything he would have been," end quote. There's so much truth to this quote. Just reading it makes me emotional. Covering cases like this one, it really cuts deep. Reading and hearing Christian's family and friends describe how wonderful of a person he was, and knowing what happened to him at the hands of someone he would have described as one of his closest friends, is almost unbearable for me, someone who never got to even meet Christian. So I can't even begin to imagine how Carlos, Claudia, and Alex go on every single minute with knowing what happened to Christian. Once the verdict was read, there was a big sense of relief for the Aguilars, that justice for Christian had been given, but PB being guilty doesn't bring Christian back. One of the most frustrating things about this case is that, to this very day, PB maintains his innocence and denies murdering Christian Aguilar. He's one of those narcissists that we see all the time within true crime who will never admit to what they had done. Not 10 years from now, 50 years, or on their deathbed will they ever confess. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. PB is and always will be guilty for murdering Christian Aguilar. Although the world lost Christian, there has still been some good to come out from his death. The Aguilar family created a foundation in Christian's memory called the Christian Aguilar Search and Rescue Foundation. This foundation focuses on training service rescue dogs, which these dogs played a very big part during Christian's investigation and in the search for him. Carlos Aguilar even owns 2 of these service dogs, and these service dogs from the foundation are active service dogs that are used to locate currently missing people. It is extremely difficult to find good in tragedies like this one, but Christian's family created some good, and I think that's absolutely inspiring. The University of Florida also provided the Aguilar family with a beautiful gesture. They presented Christian's family with a degree for biomedical engineering in Christian Aguilar's name. The degree that Christian would have undoubtedly achieved by himself if he had been given the chance. 18 years wasn't enough time. The things that Christian could have accomplished, the amount of people he would have helped after finishing and gaining his degree. He should be in his early 30s right now. Maybe he and Erica would have eventually gotten married. Maybe he would have become a father by now. Maybe he would have gotten his master's degree. The possibilities for Christian were endless. But unfortunately, Christian didn't get the chance to do any of these things. It was taken away by some idiot who didn't want to get over his ex. PB ruined 2 families the day he took Christian's life. He ruined the Aguilar family and his own family. And for what? Apparently his ultimate goal was to get Erica back, right? Getting rid of Christian didn't do that. If anything, it sealed the fact that Erica was never, ever going to take him back. I'll just never understand the mind of a killer. My heart goes out to Christian's family, Erica, and everyone else who had ever loved Christian. I just know that it's a hole that will never be filled, no matter how much time passes. But that is everything that I have on this case. If you stuck with me to the end, thank you. Please take a moment to share this video on all social media platforms and subscribe to support me and the channel. Leave comments down below. Let me know how you feel about this case, and I will be back in a few days to go over a current true crime news segment. But until then, bye guys.